I've had my M3 Touring for 2.5 months now, and I've covered 2,000 miles. It's also had a couple of upgrades since I last had it on the channel. So let's jump inside, talk about what it's been like to live with for the past 2.5 months, and talk about what those upgrades are. First thing I want to do is apologise about the lack of content on the channel over the past couple of months. I've been exceptionally busy. I've been travelling loads. In fact, I'm just about to take my 20th flight of 2023, which is nuts. Lou and I have moved house recently, about 5 weeks ago. I think I've spent 8 or 9 nights there in the past 5 weeks. And that has been very time consuming and will continue to be time consuming because we've got so much to do. And on top of all of that, well, Petrolped and I have just launched a podcast called the Drive Talk Podcast. As in, we launched it, well, first episode went live pretty much exactly a week ago. It's been loads of planning. We've been talking about it for about the past year. We have Michelin on board as our headline sponsor, which is just amazing. And the first episode seems to have gone down very, very well. In fact, when I checked this morning on a rankings online chart of Apple's downloads or Apple Podcasts, we are number 1 in the automotive space and number 1 in the leisure space in the UK. So we couldn't have asked for more than that. It's just been incredible. So please make sure you check out that podcast using the link below in the description. If you're going to watch us on YouTube, make sure you do subscribe. It's also available on all other major podcast platforms like Apple that we've just talked about, Spotify, etc. Let's talk about the upgrades that my G81 M3 Touring has had since you last saw it on the channel. Since I picked it up from Motec well over 2 months ago, the reality is I've been using this car literally to go to the airport and back and a few other trips here and there. Nothing too exciting as yet, but I have managed to, in the past 2 months, take it to a couple of places to have some modifications done. And the first of those places were Miltech Sport up in Derby. As you might know, I've had Miltech systems on both of my recent G-Series M3 saloons, so the rear wheel drive and more recently the X-Drive. And those systems from Miltech were the full systems, the catback systems essentially. And what that means, or what that meant, was I had to have an OPF delete cable installed because that exhaust removed the OPF filters, which is great in terms of sound and it's great in terms of allowing the engine to breathe. I don't know the figures, but I can guarantee that having a full system on your car just adds power, adds pickup, gives you more performance in general. Wow, look at this road. Oh wow, welcome to South Bucks. Wow, very nice Tesla owner. Thank you very much. I think your car's rather ugly, but you're a very nice person, so I appreciate it. So yeah, without doubt, definitely gives you more performance, removing things like the OPF, etc. The issue with removing the OPF, or the issue with pretty much any kind of modification these days on modern cars, especially BMWs, is there is massive grey areas. And I do modify my cars, not majorly. I don't play with turbos and ECUs, and most of the time they're grey areas with BMW, specifically because BMW want you to buy their marketing performance parts. Their M performance parts, not mark. Does M stand for? No, it stands for market. I'm not sure. Anyway, they want you to buy their mostly horrific M performance parts, and therefore they're really clamping down on trying to sting people that don't stick to the rule book. So with the full systems that were on my two saloons, well, that was kind of playing with fire, especially essentially removing the OPF filters and plugging that cable in, which told the computer in the car that the OPF sensors were there when indeed they weren't. So I wasn't going to do that with the touring because I was kind of playing with fire, and I know it caused a little bit of grief. So this time with the touring, I've gone for the OPF back system from Miltech. So it's essentially a rear axle back system, the rear box if you like. So you still get some enhanced sound. It still allows the car to breathe maybe a little bit better than the stock system. It looks miles better, especially from underneath or from behind. You still get a choice of all sorts of exhaust tips. I've gone for I think it's the brushed titanium, which I had on the saloons. They're pretty big. I think they're 115 millimeters in diameter each. So that's 4 of those across the back. But the good thing with the rear box only, or the OPF back box, is not only do you get an enhanced sound, which I'll hopefully demonstrate right now, you can also feel it through the car. The great thing about it compared to the full systems is when you're on the motorway and you take it out of M and you knock everything back into comfort, and the car just relaxes, and those exhaust valves, which are the OEM valves which bolt straight onto the Miltech system, well, they close, and then you're left with no drone in the cabin at all. And that's really important, especially in the touring, because any slight hint of drone or exhaust noise is amplified in the touring because you've got all that area back there. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. It's not as loud and as aggressive as the full system, but that's not a bad thing for me. It's a little bit sharper. It makes a slightly better noise than the stock system. It looks better. It's lighter. But most importantly for me is on longer journeys, when you've got the valves closed, well, it becomes essentially a stock system again. So thumbs up all round for me, and not to mention the fact that a rear box only is cheaper than a full system, as you can imagine. So massive shout out and thanks to Miltech for sorting that. And in fact, here are some clips of the before and after when I was up at Miltech about 5 or 6 weeks ago now. So check them out, and then I'll tell you about my next upgrade. So Kev, the legend down here at Miltech Sport, has just cut off and removed the rear section of the exhaust. Now, this is the OEM exhaust, and there's actually cut points on here for when you fit, or when you don't fit, hopefully, BMW's M Performance system, because it gets cut there and then that is mounted from there backwards. So essentially, when or if this car does go back to Tony, we will just put the original section back on and use BMW OEM clamps. But yeah, it looks fairly similar under here. I think these braces are slightly different on the Touring. They're the same as the ones that you get in or on the convertible, but otherwise it's very, very similar. And here are the two systems side by side. So that's the OEM, and then this is the Miltech system. As you can see, it's a lot better looking, a lot simpler, and the rear box, I would say, is probably about a third of the volume of that one, so should do a little bit of weight saving as well. And then the tips will go on to the end of there. My next upgrades meant a journey to see my very good friends at Evolve Automotive. Now, it's probably no surprise that they reinstalled my beautiful carbon fiber e-Venturi intake. The intake that I had on my M3 Saloon, I took that off. Obviously that did not go back with the car, and that is now installed in this car. And once again, obviously it looks like $1 million, and once again, hopefully the mic picks this up. I'm not sure if it will, but the intake sound, listen. Just incredible. And not only does it look good, not only does it make that glorious sound. In fact, let's just do windows open, although it is very windy out there. See if you can hear it with the windows open. We'll do a 4th gear pull from 25 miles an hour. It's very windy. You might not get that because it's windy out there, but I can tell you it is glorious. Really, really is. It's a great, great sounding piece of kit. Not only did they install that, they installed the Hexon carbon engine brace, which also came from my M3 X-Drive Saloon, and just completes the look of the engine bay. Well, it doesn't quite complete the look of the engine bay because, well, before I had the OEM factory plastic engine bay cover, but Imran and Bilal and everyone else down there very kindly gave me one of their carbon S58 engine bay covers, which is a new product down there. It just, I love the way my engine bay looks now. Our new place has got a garage, which means I can park the car in the garage and I can leave the bonnet up unnecessarily, but that means I can come in and just look into the engine bay. It's beautiful. It really looks incredible in there, and combination of the intake, the Hexon brace and the engine bay cover, well, they all just complement each other so well. So massive thanks to everyone down there for surprising me with the engine bay cover especially. That's really cool. But it didn't end there. As you've probably seen from the intro to this video, well, I now have CSL daylight runners, by which I mean the yellow sort of halo headlights on my M3 Touring, and that's because Evolve can change some chips in your headlights, which basically tells the LED to be yellow. I think they've actually got ones down there for all different colors, but I wanted yellow. Initially I really wanted yellow, then I wasn't sure. I thought, is it a little bit chavvy? I was really sitting on the fence when I was down there, and very kindly Imran said, look, just try them. If you don't like them, then we'll just put them back to your normal one. And actually I have really grown to love them. I think they really suit this particular spec of car, the dark sort of Dravik grey. And whilst we're moving house, well, I was in a van and Lou was driving this, and looking back at this with those yellow daylight runners, oh, it's just, it looks so menacing. And in fact, the majority of people that I've shown or met since I've had it done have really liked it. So keen to hear what you think in the comments below. At first I wasn't sure, but now I absolutely love them, and yeah, very happy with the car. So once again, massive thanks to Imran, Bilal, Hash and Aston for all of the work they did. I was down at Evolve for at least half the day, and those guys are just absolute legends. So huge shout out, guys. I really appreciate it, as always. And I could not recommend them high enough, but I'm sure you know that because I do talk about Evolve and their beautiful eVenturi products a lot, because they are worth it. Let's now talk about what this car has been like to live with for the past 2.5 months. You know, the pros and cons, if you like. Well, as talked about a bit earlier on, I literally haven't done any more than airport runs, Miltech sport run, a Motec run, an Evolve run, and the odd driving. In fact, this right now along this road in these conditions, although it's getting dark out there very quickly, this is about as exciting as a drive as I've had in this car, because the weather's been horrendous. We've been using it to move. We've been using it as a proper workhorse. So it's really come in handy with the move, because we've had this car filled up to the rafters many times. So in that sense, as a practicality, it's been brilliant. And in fact, I saw that Sam Seen Through Glasses recently had an M3 Touring press car, and it's definitely worth a watch, that video. It's really good. It's a completely different angle. He is a family man now. He has a little bubs and dog and everything, or dogs. Has he got 2 dogs now? I can't remember. But anyway, he reviews this car in a real practical sense, so that's worth watching. It covers a lot of areas and aspects that other videos haven't. So yeah, good work as always. I mean, you kind of expect that with Sam. His videos have always got an interesting storyline, very different to the norm, let's say. So practicalities, it's been brilliant. I have noticed that there is a bit more cabin noise. We talked about that, I think, when I even had that early press car. You do get a bit more tyre roar in here. Even now I feel like I'm shouting a bit more. Ride quality, it's really hard to say, because although I did 10,000 odd miles in my saloon on similar roads, you know, it wasn't back to back. But I have to say, I think the ride quality in the touring is not quite as good as the ride quality in the saloon, especially when you're on your own in the car. And I think the reason for that is the spring rates, at least on the rear axle, are slightly harder or stiffer, and so when it's empty you can just feel a few more bits and pieces. The ride it's a little bit more niggly, if that makes sense. But I could be completely wrong there, as I say, because I haven't tested it back to back. But that's just my hazard, or that's just my guess. Something else that's worth talking about is the curved display, because this is obviously new to me in a car that I have in my own garage, a car that I, let's say, own, finance. Am I getting to grips with it more? Well, I have to say I am. I don't love it. I don't think I'll ever love it, but I didn't really love the dials in the pre-interior facelift M3s, like my saloons. I haven't liked BMW dashes for about the past 4 or 5 years, since the G23 series came out. I don't like those graphics and the layout, and I think this layout and graphics are better. But the whole curve thing, I miss my climate control buttons down here, even things like the heated seat button. You know, you have to go into a menu to put it's just a bit fiddly. It's definitely not as intuitive as old school buttons, but it looks fantastic. Something I am a bit concerned about, and I'd heard about last summer with these curve displays, is when it gets hot, so summer, 30 degrees outside and the car's warm, apparently these curve displays can radiate a lot of heat, and I did experience that on a long drive recently where I could feel this heat coming from somewhere and put my hand out thinking it was the vent, but actually it was the curve display. So it'd be interesting to see what happens during the summer months. So if I take this down to the south of France, it's 35 degrees outside and the aircon's flowing and the sun's on the dashboard. Let's see, it might get really, really hot. So that's definitely something worth keeping an eye on. I must be getting old because I'm finding it harder and harder to get in and out of these seats. But I am massively out of shape at the moment. So I've actually just had some really nice gym equipment delivered to my place, and my fitness program starts tomorrow, so I'm adamant about getting fit because working alongside Petrolped recently, well, he is a machine at the moment. He has lost so much weight and is so fit because he's training to do a half Ironman, and so hanging around with him has really motivated me to get fit, lose some weight. So maybe the getting in and out will become easier as I become a little bit more slender. In terms of MPG, well, I've been averaging, let's have a look, in fact, I'll bring it up, since refuel, since factory. So I've averaged 22 MPG, which isn't great, in almost exactly 2,000 miles. The most I've seen on a journey recently is about 28, 29. I don't think it's going to get much better than that, to be honest. It's a bit heavier than the saloon. It's not as aerodynamic. Also, the fact that it's pretty much brand new, this car needs to loosen up a bit. By the time it's done 5,000-6,000 miles, we might see 30, 31 on longer runs. But it's definitely not going to match something like an M3 saloon rear wheel drive, which you'd quite happily see 37, 38. So what's that, like 15-20% more efficient on longer runs, but you're not buying these for pure efficiency, and with a full tank, if you're just doing motorway miles, you get a range of about 350, 370 miles, so not bad at all. And unlike an EV, you go to a petrol station and you fill it up for 5 minutes and then you have another 350 miles. So yeah, apart from the cost, which thankfully fuel prices have settled a little bit. But yeah, otherwise that's kind of my early report. I'm planning on doing a lot of interesting and exciting drives with this car during the summer months. Drives that it deserves, because recently it really just has been the workhorse, which is good. But I've just been racking up miles, not doing anything particularly exciting, and that does frustrate me, and I'm sure it frustrates the car a little bit. My Edelweiss wheels will be going back on it as well. I'm still fighting Bucks Council about the damage that their horrific roads have done to my wheels, but those wheels will be making a return, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they look like on this car. And I think that is about it for now. Before I go, I just want to say a massive shout out and thanks to my good friends down at Caffeine and Machine. They sent me some awesome clothing. Nice little package arrived recently. I did one of their I Love You Man shows. I presented it, well, Alex Goy presented it, and I was their guest, the last guest at the end of 2022, and they very kindly sent me out a package of some nice clothing, beanie, this lovely hoodie, and a couple of really cool t-shirts. So big shout out and thanks to those guys. They've got some fantastic merch. This is not paid or anything. I've actually purchased a few of their t-shirts over the past couple of years organically because I love their stuff, really good quality. So it's nice to organically be sent some from those guys. Till the next video, take it easy and I'll see you then. Cheers.